Happiness is when the torture stops. Hello, this is Chris speaking. Wake up with a video about happiness. What is happiness? Do we even know what happiness is? There's this idea of pursuit of happiness that is even mentioned along with life and freedom in the Declaration of Independence of the USA. And there's this idea in modern societies that the pursuit of happiness is the aim of life. Actually, it's not a new idea. The Greeks, the ancient Greeks, 2,500 years ago, started with this business. But what is this happiness? What are we actually looking for? Think a moment if you can define this happiness that you're looking for. You're probably looking for it because we have been taught to look for it. Most probably, you're looking for something that feels like some events, some experiences you had as a child, or maybe even in the womb. We remember back when we were children laughing, playing in the garden or in the park or on the street with friends. And now we're looking for it as adults. And we don't find it. And advertisement and all kinds of business marketing is trying to tell us that we can get this happiness by buying things, by owning things, external happiness. And again and again and again we find out that this doesn't work, and we look inside and we don't find any happiness. We find grief and anger and sadness and fear and panic and all kinds of trauma reactions. But where is this happiness and how can we find it? Now, some people have the grand idea that happiness might be what those enlightenment gurus talk about when they mention love and bliss, or what people who take entheogens, psychedelics, talk about when they say all is love, all is connected. Well, in actual fact, what we have become used to call happiness is the absence of suffering. Happiness is when the torture stops. When the torturer takes a break, then we say, oh, that's so good. Yeah. Well, it's only a neutral phase in reality, as opposed to the horror of day-to-day life as a traumatized person. So what we think of as happiness, what most people think of as happiness, is just the absence of horror and suffering and fear and pain. What we actually suffer from is a collective Stockholm syndrome. We're all living in a huge prison, an invisible prison, like in 1984 by George Orwell, or like in the movie The Matrix. And now and then we get a break from this horrible reality. And now and then we get a break from this horrible reality, or we get a little reward, a little bit of fun when something comfortable or something great happens. For a few seconds, we get this happiness. We get our fix. But in actual fact, we're just addicts. We're both addicts to this search for happiness and this short feeling of elation that we feel sometimes. And we are also addicts to pain and suffering and fear. Addicts to shame and guilt. We're all codependent. We're all traumatized. to a degree where we actually love our prison and our prison keepers, our prison guards, and we cannot even think of another way of being anymore. We forgot that we are imprisoned. We suppress this thought whenever it comes up. It's too horrible to contemplate that what we call reality is actually a prison camp. And every generation makes sure that the next new generation is imprisoned as well and doesn't know about it. Unconsciously. They don't even do it consciously. They think they do it out of love, but again, they don't know what love is, just as they don't know what happiness is. And one of the greatest machineries of oppression and traumatization and torture and unhappiness is what happens for most children around the age of 6. They get enrolled into school. And think about what school is. If you're a teacher, then you might not want to hear the rest of this video. Because if you're a teacher, unconsciously, if you teach how and what you're told to teach, then you're probably not teaching the children, but you're breaking them. How other people break a horse or a dog into submission, into slavery. Think about, for example, children have to ask to go to the toilet. As a child, during a lesson, when you have to go to the loo, you have to ask for permission, and this permission can be denied to you. This causes shame. And shame and guilt are the two most horrible emotions that can be experienced by a human being. You're being taught all kinds of nonsense, useless stuff. You're not being taught how to live in harmony with nature. You're not being taught how to live in harmony with yourself. You're not even being taught how to manage your life later on as an adult, how to do your taxes, how to earn money. Least of all, you're being taught how to be happy. No. You're just being taught to follow orders, to learn things by heart, and to learn things that you're not interested in. You're being forced to sit down all day long, listen to some droning for 1 or 2 hours, then you have a little break, and you can play with your friends, and then it goes on and on and on, and you're being punished all the time and reprimanded all the time, maybe even ridiculed. And some teachers, most teachers really want to do good for their pupils. They just don't see that the system is inherently flawed and cannot be repaired. This kind of teaching can never be improved to a level that is beneficial for human beings. It would have to be changed totally. But some teachers are also psychopaths or narcissists who really torture the children on purpose. After the parents, no one is as influential in childhood as teachers. And who makes the decisions what is being taught and how? Some people in some office who don't have any idea about children and who are so traumatized that they don't even remember how it was when they were children. This is not a rant about school, how horrible school is. This is just an example of how we are broken as children already, like child soldiers in Africa who don't know any better later. Then we run around traumatized, looking for happiness But this happiness has long been beaten out of us. We all have self-love deficit disorder. And if you don't love yourself, how can you feel happy? And how can you love yourself when you've been told all your childhood that what you feel and that what you want to do is wrong? You cannot play now, you have to go to school. You cannot play now, you have to learn this poem by heart. You cannot play now, you have to learn how to calculate. And most of all, you're helpless. You're totally helpless before anyone or towards anyone who is an adult, be it your parents or your teachers or anyone else. You cannot run away and you cannot defend yourself. So what's left? Only trauma responses are left. Freeze, fawn, something like this. If you have the impression that this person who's standing in front of you in the classroom is a psychopath, then your parents will say, okay, bad luck. This will be your teacher for this year. Let's hope that you will have another teacher next year. You cannot say, this person turns my gut into mush and jelly. Every second I spend with him in this room is pure torture. No, you have to suffer for 1 year at least, maybe for 2, 3, 4 years. And whenever you have a break, remember how it was as a child. Most children, they say what they like most about school is playing with other children. The breaks, when they come home, or the holidays. That's the best thing about school. There are very few children who say they really like learning stuff there, in that environment, and that kind of stuff. Maybe you have a favorite subject like art or sports or something like that. But otherwise, not so much. So again, this is not a rant against schools or teachers. This is just one aspect of how we get conditioned and enculturated into slavery, into not noticing that we're living in a prison and that our spirit, our willpower has already been broken, and whatever we're being told, we accept as the truth. Like Winston in 1984, he gets tortured to the point where he says and believes that everything that his torture master tells him is correct. Same in the movie Matrix. All the people who are not freed, who didn't go down the rabbit hole, who didn't take the red pill, they believe that this is reality and they don't want to know anything else. They would fight to the death to protect their illusion. This is the best of all prisons. This is Stockholm Syndrome par excellence. And whenever this horror stops for a moment, whenever we have a little bit of a break or a holiday, just as back then as a child in school, then we think this is happiness. But this is not happiness, this is just a break. Happiness is something completely different. And as long as you're still in prison and believe that prison is not prison, and as long as you don't find your self-love again, there can be no happiness. You don't even know what happiness is. You forgot it. You might have a little bit of a memory from some moments of your childhood before your spirit was broken. And that's what you're looking for. And it's okay to look for that. But you have to decondition yourself first. You have to go through the coral washer and throw out all the propaganda that you've been taught and beaten into submission to belief. And then you have a chance. But while you're in prison, it's very difficult, because prison is full of prison guards as well. So the only way out is in, the only way in is out. To really examine your beliefs and your conditionings and your traumatization, and then you can get out of this prison. Because similar than in the movie Matrix, it's kind of virtual. The most powerful wall of this prison is your mind. Is that you believe that this is not a prison. So if you're looking for happiness, I'm sorry to tell you that first you have to look at why you're unhappy. So thank you for listening and watching. Thank you for subscribing, hitting the bell button. Thank you for joining us on Patreon and Facebook, and maybe in the next group that we will have soon, next training, the Escape Artist Prison Break Club. See you soon.